The audiences and fans are beginning to wake up to the fact that they want more than vibes from their idols. Life is all about choices. I could have easily been just another photographer that is in Cannes, is in Venice, is shooting celebrities all the time. It's not who I am. I enter the room very clear. I don't code switch about what I stand for to anyone. I'm not judging you for your silence. I'm begging you for your voice. It's never too late to have a voice. Forget about what your publicist is saying, what your management is saying, and listen to your heart.
Welcome to the Big Picture Podcast. My name is Mohammed Hassan, and today we're joined by celebrated photographer and Oscar-nominated filmmaker Misan Harriman. Harriman has built a global following through his moving black and white photography of the world's most recognizable faces, becoming the first ever black photographer to shoot the cover of Vogue. Since then, he made his directorial debut with the emotional short film Ruminating on Grief, The After, which was nominated for an Academy Award in 2024. His new documentary, Shoot the People, chronicles his own story as he travels the world drawing inspiration from the Anti-Apartheid movement in South Africa, Black Lives Matter in the US, and the Gaza ceasefire movement here in the UK. But what makes Harriman stand out is what he chooses to turn his lens and his platform towards. Since October 7, he's been a staple of pro-Palestine rallies, searching through the crowds for individuals, protesters with a message that resonate with him, and showing that to the world. Before that, he covered the Black Lives Matter movement, framing ordinary people in extraordinary ways, giving them the same intimate and dramatic treatment he gives to the world's rich and famous. And through his lens, he sends a message. Misan Harriman, welcome to the Big Picture Podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mohammed.
There's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about. You are somebody that spends a lot of their work looking out at the world, drawing from it truths, often emotional truths, meaning, inspiration. So I want to begin by asking you, when you look out at the world around us today, what do you see?
The trees would be weeping. You know, the ancient beings that have been watching Homo sapiens, us, rip ourselves from piece to piece for generations, even they would be shocked at what we've become. I think extractive capitalism, nationalism, and the hubris of man and patriarchy, because I really do think if women were in the room, we wouldn't be in this state that we are now. So I think we're at we've crossed the Rubicon and are eating ourselves up, and none of us have a choice. The only choice is to resist, and resist with whatever tool you have. It can be a paintbrush, right? It can be your voice. It can be a conversation with a friend. It could be your actual job as a politician if you have a soul. I'm looking for politicians with souls. But
Let me know when you find one.
Yeah, but we don't have a choice because our children, what world are they going? I have two little girls. What world are they going to inherit? Which is why I do what I do.
Do you think the way that you've seen the world has changed?
Yeah, you know, one of the worst things about modern man is a combination of two things: confirmation bias, right, and arrested development. So if you only hang around with the same people that read the same newspaper, that have traveled to the same places, and you're all in an echo chamber of telling everyone that black people and Arabs are savages your whole life, and you watch movies where the only people of color are holding submachine guns, right? You don't grow. What is happening now is people, and a lot of it, I have to say, it's too high a cost, but Palestine has lifted the veil on who we really are, who you are personally, who I am, who our governments are, what our past really was. And many people, this is the first time that they're going on a journey of decolonizing their minds and understanding the truth of our collective past and our current lived experience.
I think that's a really interesting point, because what I have seen is over the last year and a half, the last 21 months, the conversation around Palestine has continued to grow wider and wider and wider. And it starts in Gaza for a lot of people who might not have been aware of what's happening. And it grows to colonization, and it grows to imperialism, and it grows to history, and it grows to the wounds that are still felt by so many people. You yourself are born in Nigeria, I'm born in Egypt, where colonial artifacts in so many ways. And I think for our communities, there's things that you're kind of aware of.
It's
you grow
baked
up.
in, yeah.
It's baked in.
Yeah.
What was that for you?
So I was born in Nigeria. My parents were born in an occupied Nigeria. So the English love to use terms like Commonwealth or colony, but it's an occupation. Nigeria was occupied, right? And if you are a child of that, you recognize that. It's in your bones. And then I'm 47, so I was a young kid when Nelson Mandela and apartheid, ended. So that was the first time that I really understood the trauma of my own people. So what do we do with that? Well, we get triggered all the time when most of our friends that do not have that lived experience or heritage just are oblivious or don't care about it. And I think what my job is, above and beyond the art, is to help people hold their hand and say, let's go on a journey of unlearning and understanding the truths of our past. Is so important. And I remember, when people start telling me it's complicated about Gaza, I'm like, you know what? Let's not talk about Gaza. Let's talk about the West Bank. Let's talk about settler colonialism and apartheid. Something that you all recognize happening to the people of South Africa, that it was a horror and a war crime. Let's focus on that. And I think in many ways the original sin of Balfour and Lloyd George, who at the time had never been to Palestine, right?
Incredible.
Never been. And I think the viewpoint, I remember when William Dalrymple read the dog in the manger quote, and I didn't know that quote by Churchill, where he talked about the white people being a higher grade race. And this is specifically talking about the, I think, 80% of Palestinians or Muslims that lived in historic Palestine.
Right, because he was saying that he's not acknowledging the fact that they have been in this land.
No, it's the dog in the manger doesn't mean it has to stay in the manger. And he was basically saying that if it's a higher grade race, and he compared it to the Red Indians, as he called them, and or the brown people of Australia, the Aborigines. I mean, it was such a ferociously racist statement, even for his time, because some of my apologist friends say, oh, no, it was... No. There are well-documented notes by Churchill's friends that thought he was just ferociously racist, full stop. But I think that kind of thing, understanding that's white supremacy, okay? Thinking the Arabs, as nice as they were, maybe welcoming, one day may make great servants, many of them thought. I mean, these are all in the journals of the time, Many Palestinians welcomed their Jewish brothers and sisters with open arms, not knowing what would happen. But it's just, you and I are in the UK, and this is the UK's complicity in this is unique. And if you look at the Balfour Agreement, you look at Sykes-Picot as well, right? And having two men, almost like children with crayons, draw up ancient civilizations and nuances and tribes and religions in a way that is causing so much bloodshed to this day.
I often joke about the borders of Egypt being so cartoonishly straight.
It's just
that they only make sense if they were drawn on a map.
Yeah, absolutely drawn. And again, that is white supremacy. You ask, I went to very posh private schools in England. No one ever taught me that. It was Jesus Christ and just below Churchill. Just below.
Yeah.
And
the most biographed man in history.
Yeah, but I remember it wasn't just racism towards black folk and Arab people. It was also a strange "we won the war" thing. I remember coming home and saying something ridiculous about French and German people, and I was a little boy, and my mom was like, "What do you? You don't even know anyone from there." And I'm like, my history teacher told me. So there are layers to it that really, really surprise me. But going back to the world that we're in today, I think we are having a great reset at the cost of too many lives. But it is the single greatest change of how the world is viewed, and understanding what the imperial war machine for profit means, what neo-colonialism means. People in America are scratching their heads because they maybe thought the Democrat Party wasn't the party of bombs. And in Biden's tenure, that has been made very clear that they very much were. And as a black person, I look at Obama. And, there's a picture with him on the table with Edward Said. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? And then I read further and, a young Barack Obama knew as much about the Palestinian plight as any professor of its time. He really knew it and was passionate about it. But such is the AIPAC hold over American politics that you just become it, or you do not become the president of the most powerful military force in the world. That's just the bottom line. It's important to articulate this to people instead of venerating people because they are black or you have any kind of understanding of the geopolitics of the time. Moral clarity is what I try and bring into how I see the world. What is right and what is wrong. And no one can ever persuade me that the bodies of Arab children is worth anything in moving any kind of society forward. No one can ever persuade me that. I will die on that sword. And I hope I'm not radical for saying such a thing.
When you were documenting the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a really interesting, there were already connections between Black Lives Matter activists and Palestinian activists, and many of them had traveled to the West Bank and made a lot of really strong bonds between them. But there was this moment when, Black Lives Matter, I think, really gave us a visual language to understand what systematic oppression looked like, what police brutality looked like, in a way that I guess even for just our generation, we didn't have a visual language to it. And then that was resurrected during the Sheikh Jarrah protests in Jerusalem, when all of a sudden, because of Black Lives Matter, many people in the West were like, "Oh, this is the same thing." There's an Israeli police officer with his knee on the neck of a Palestinian boy. This is the same thing. This is connected. And you have documented both of these protest movements, the Palestinian protest movement and the Black Lives Matter. What to you is the similarity? What is the connection?
It's the same oppressor. It's exactly the same oppressor. If you go back, if you look at the dehumanization of the black body from Jim Crow, from lynchings beforehand, the militarization of the penal system, the prison system, it's the same. There literally is no difference at all. And I think many black voices, Malcolm X, spoke openly about it a long time before you and I were born. So that, Kwame Ture as well. So there's always been a line if you know where to look. And I think black culture is interesting, especially in America, because of course, colonialism, the thing about the oppressor is at the moment he is seemingly off your neck, we have been programmed to want to have proximity to the oppressor, right? So there are many aspects of black culture that I don't think is owned and controlled by black culture. And when you have people like DJ Khaled, right?
Yeah.
Who I think has benefited from black culture in a huge way, not saying anything about his own people and eating makluba on one of the most watched primetime TV shows whilst children are gasping, taking their last breaths, whilst Palestinian corpses are being eaten by dogs. It's not something I play with, So we need to ask ourselves, what is culture becoming, and how do we take ownership back of our own culture? So that there's a history of the intersectionality of understanding your trauma, my trauma. That's just the beginning. But how does culture help? Muhammad Ali risked everything because he didn't. No one in Vietnam ever called him the N-word. Why is he going to go and kill? Or he wasn't really going to actually shoot any gun. I think he was going to do lots of boxing shows and what have you. But why should he be part of a military that's killing a people that he's never been to or doesn't know? And I think, we need to have both the Muslim Arab community and the global Black community really get closer in understanding that together we shape culture, right? And we mustn't have culture wrapped around white supremacy. You look at the sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, I don't know what percentage is Black, but I can tell you if every Black man stopped bouncing a ball, there is no NBA. There is no NFL. And if you look at the history of these leagues and the mainly wealthy white men that are right-leaning in their politics that own the teams, it's problematic. But that is why they pay I don't know how much LeBron James is on, but if
must be a lot.
Yeah, but it's important because that's also modern slavery. It's very hard. I think Mo Salah, I can bring him up as well. It's very hard to have a bird's eye view and be able to have complete critical thinking of what's more important with the amazing voice that you have when you are in a 28-bedroom house in your 7th Rolls Royce earning $50 million a year. It's very hard to pause in that and think, going back to LeBron, that if he called every major Black superstar in the NBA, and also the white ones who are mainly European, saying, hey, why don't we just raise some money? Set up our own league. People are coming to watch us. Why don't we do that? Have ownership of our own league, set up a co-op of players and have real ownership in this thing that's generating billions of dollars a year. Why don't we do that?
There was a moment from a few years ago with LeBron where there was an NBA manager or deputy manager, I can't remember his name. He had posted something in solidarity with the protests in Hong Kong. And there was such an uproar about that because of how much money the NBA makes in China. And LeBron had to come out on behalf of the NBA and apologize for something that he hadn't said to maintain this monetary connection, this financial incentive that the NBA was getting.
Again, our heroes are many of them, and it's not a criticism of them. I think it is, they haven't been on the journey. Many of them are on the journey, and you've got people like Kyrie Irving, who's very supportive of Palestine. But I think many Black icons still, especially from America, still need to understand the machinery that allows them to be wealthy, right? If you look at Drake and Kendrick Lamar, Super Bowl halftime show, I don't think it was Kendrick, and correct me if I'm wrong, that told his dancer to run with the Sudanese and Palestinian flag. That dancer, who's since been arrested, did it on his own volition, right? And it's extraordinary because the whole show was about resistance, yet the lead performer didn't do anything close to one of his dancers. And it's just something we need to be really, really honest about. I think both Drake and Kendrick are signed to Universal Music, which, you dig into the politics of the power structures of that organization and the fact that so much of Black culture is shaped by these organizations that I don't know if they genuinely care about the historical trauma of the people that they profit off. Right?
And that's the thing, right? Is that Universal Music ultimately was the winner of that between these two.
Yeah, I mean, they have Drake,
giants.
they have Kendrick, and it's great. It's really, really important for folks that watch this to really just, we always have to keep having a bird's eye view on things. The NFL, for example, for a long time, in my lifetime, the quarterback position, which was seen as a position where you needed the most intelligence, it was full white. Tom Brady was ideal. He's perfect. He looks right. He's a quarterback, very talented player. But for a long time, it wasn't for black folk. And what does that tell you? That's leaning into the eugenic idea that a lot of these billionaires have, that people of color are less intelligent than white people. That was baked into the NFL. You literally had a league where 90% of the quarterbacks, usually the most highest paid as well, people, were throwing the ball to all the black folk to catch because we were too stupid to read the game.
Yeah.
That was the perception. It's changed a lot now. There are much more black quarterbacks. But it's important for us to recognize the reality of what it was within our lifetime.
I want to ask you about the idea of cultural capital, right? Because you've mentioned a bunch of recognizable names, some of the most influential cultural figures of our time, whether in sports or in music. We talked about DJ Khaled, we talked about Mo Salah, we talked about LeBron and Kendrick, and there are others, whether it's Jay-Z, Beyonce, people that are now at the apex of culture. What kind of power do you think that affords people in those situations, especially if they're people of color?
Well, I think the thing about generational trauma, so much of it is unresolved. And if you are allowed into rooms where you never thought you would be, it's really hard to break down that door and pull up others. It's also really, really hard for you to realize that the room needs you more than you need the room. So,
which means that you have the power to walk away.
You have the power to walk away. If Jay-Z and Beyonce did a video today saying, "Free Congo, free Palestine, free Sudan, now," with links to medical aid for Palestine, to links to Amnesty's description of what apartheid in the current form, which is a very advanced version of apartheid that Israel's doing to the Palestinian people, it would be huge. And I wouldn't just say black people. I think Taylor Swift, the whole Kardashian clan. If you look at the most followed people on Instagram, I think the most followed page, a lot of people don't know this, is actually, do you know? Before I say it, do you know what the most followed page on Instagram is?
My humble guess would be Ronaldo.
No. It's at Instagram.
Okay.
That's the most followed page. And it's...
I don't think I've ever seen a post from at Instagram.
It's 600... I can't remember. I'm sure your team will check, but it's mega. And then it's Ronaldo, Beyonce, Messi, Taylor, and then a flurry of Kardashians. And I think of the top 10 followed page, I'm not sure any of them have made any real statement about the biggest loss of life in children that we've seen in a generation, the most amputated children in recorded history. And there's a reason for that is insidious, that we as a people are beginning to unpack, and there is a new generation of icons that will come quick. So my message to celebrities is, I'm begging you, because I'm not too proud to beg, because I want these babies to stop dying. So I'm begging them that I'm not judging you for your silence. I'm begging you for your voice. It's never too late to have a voice. And forget about what your publicist is saying, what your management is saying, and listen to your heart. People that look like you or are babies are being erased from existence with the most advanced military machinery that mankind has ever seen. I think that the audiences and fans are beginning to wake up to the fact that they want more than vibes from their idols. And they will soon call their idols false idols, even if the vibes were good. And that's beginning to happen now. So for business alone, If morality won't make you do the right thing, then let it be a business choice that makes you do the right thing. Brands are, look at Ben and Jerry's. Brands are not losing money for showing that they have a soul. And the consumers of tomorrow, I think there's $1 trillion opportunity for brands to be brands of purpose. And celebrities are becoming celebrities of purpose. I look at the fact that health workers are becoming new celebrities. Dr. Victoria Rose, people are more excited in seeing her than some singers. And this is a woman that runs where the bombs have dropped to find the babies, to patch them up. I want my daughters to look up to somebody like that. So it's changing, and it's changing fast. Publicists don't like it, management don't like it, because they don't know how to deal with the fact that people are beginning to look for human beings that have some kind of heart.
They don't know how to package that.
How do you package humanity? Humanity glows. It comes out, it throbs out of the screen. Algorithms can't stop humanity, right? And I think hopefully this will be the next stage of celebrity culture, and the vacuous influencer-led world will die sooner than later.
There's a really fascinating scene in your documentary, Shoot the People, where you are in Los Angeles and you have been nominated for an Oscar for your first short film, The After, and you're on your way and you're getting ready to go to one of the most important nights of your life professionally. And on the way, you pass by a pro-Palestine protest that is essentially protesting the Oscars. I wanted you to explain to us what that moment felt like. I mean, during, when you first saw the protesters, and then afterwards when you actually enter the halls of the Oscars.
I could have easily been arrested that day. I was itching to run out. And, it's funny. We had our film crew, with us, and I knew they were going to document it because no one had really seen that footage. It wasn't broadcasted how big the process was at the Oscars. So I was like, Misan, you're documenting this. You have a fighting chance of winning an Oscar. And if you win an Oscar, you're going to go on stage to 1 billion people and speak truth to power in a way you've never done before. So hold steady. And I think that's what kept me in the car. The possibility, unfortunately, I lost to Wes Anderson, but the possibility of going up on that stage. And I remember Jonathan Glazer.
Because he was there that day.
He was there that day, and I remember his handshake. I saw him walk up, and you're holding a piece of paper, and I was like, "Oh, he's gonna do something. And he did. Jewish man that made one of the most important films about the Holocaust, probably since Schindler's List. And we all saw what happened.
He was crucified for that speech.
He was. But history will remember those that have moral clarity. That was my experience of the Oscars.
What did it feel like, having kind of experienced that, seeing these people that you were shoulder to shoulder with at these protests, and then leaving that world and then entering this different world? And you were there with a mission, and you're there with a speech that you want to say, but just the juxtapose.
Well, that's my whole life, isn't it? I think after I became known for the Vogue cover, life is all about choices. I could have easily been just another photographer that is in Cannes, is in Venice, is shooting celebrities all the time. I have all the access now, right? And that could have been it. It's not who I am, and I love the medium of photography. I love the history of photographing interesting people with interesting stories. But the work is listening to the streets. The work is using my lens to reflect the human condition. And I think the visibility that my proximity to celebrity culture has helped. And this is what you do. It's a sleight of hand. People are like, oh my God, Misan, Vogue, amazing. I'm like, Free Palestine, Congo, Sudan. You know what's happening to children in Nigeria? And they're like, oh. And that's me. So it gives me the access. But I enter the room very clear. I don't code switch about what I stand for to anyone. And I think maybe that's why, especially in the last 18 months, a really big audience has found me and stayed with me and helped me know that, I should continue swimming upstream.
Did anyone ever tell you not to talk so much about Palestine?
Is a Pope Catholic? Come on, man. Absolutely everyone that works in the machinery of entertainment, even if they don't tell you, they wish you didn't. And I want to also be proof that you can thrive as a filmmaker, as a photographer, as a storyteller, whilst not losing your soul, because what's it worth? You know, I think of Khaled, what's it worth? Life is fleeting, one day he'll be an old man, what's he going to be remembered for? Right? People's memories sometimes fade, but I think when it comes to this crime, this wound, we're never going to forget. And that applies to everyone. You know, I think of the ambassadors as, you know, celebrities are one thing, but there are celebrities that are ambassadors to children's charities. Just so I'm very clear. The charities do one thing: protect children when they're in danger. I am an ambassador of one, Save the Children. The two big ones are Save the Children and UNICEF. And then you have others, many others, like War Child. And I would say the majority of the most high-profile ambassadors have not said a thing about the children of Gaza.
Why is that?
I think the real reason is that the fear of feeling alone in being called out for something they know is right overrides doing the right thing. How crazy is that? And many of these people have enough wealth for 10 generations. One I will name is David Beckham. Huge ambassador for UNICEF. And if he hears this, David, I beg you, this isn't about rage or finger pointing. I beg you, you have children, you've raised children, you've just been knighted, you have unspeakable wealth. Be the voice for the children of Gaza. Push everything out that advisors or friends are telling you. Focus on children. This is about children. There's over a 300% increase in miscarriages. Children have been rotting in incubators, of which there are very few left. Mothers are starving so much that they can't produce milk. No milk is allowed in. Doctor after doctor from the UK, Ireland, US, Scandinavia have given impassioned testimony of children with perfect shots through their head and heart. Children have lost limb after limb after limb after limb. Mr. Beckham, ambassador for UNICEF. This is the biggest tragedy of the human condition in our lifetime. And for those of us that choose to represent the protection of children and choose to remain silent, I beg you, tomorrow, do something about it. And if you need help in articulating it, I will do everything in my power to give you the data points, to give you the cadence and language that's gentle and doesn't offend those you are afraid of, but helps humanize these babies. That's my view on ambassadors for children's charities.
There's a sense of moral clarity that you speak with that feels almost freeing. Is that how it feels to you?
There is no pillow as soft as a clear conscience. And that's a pillow that I lay my head on. Also, frankly speaking, how can any culture, how can any man or woman whisper about the annihilation of children. It's just that simple. We can get into, and also, I know I'm focused on children, but I also want to make it very clear that the dehumanization of the Arab man, woman, is unspeakable to me. And the post 9/11 machinery that went into play of an Arab man either being a rich fool or a terrorist, and he couldn't be a father, a brother, a poet, a physician.
A victim.
A victim. Is such a huge crime. And if you look at the history of so much that the West enjoys that's come from the region, and the fact that entertainment has managed to reduce it to this, watching shows like Homeland where the baddie was Abu Hamza, I mean, what the hell is this? And I do not want to see another Muslim woman holding a limp baby. It's too much. Who the hell do we think we are that can be normalized? I think of Ukraine. You know, the footage I saw yesterday of a 6-7-year-old girl running in her white slippers as a building is destroyed broke me. If that was a blonde, blue-eyed, Western European girl, every single newspaper in Germany, in the UK, in DC, New York, LA would have it planted. Time magazine. Every celebrity would be screaming. So what does that mean to you? Do the children of Ukraine deserve the right to live? Yes, but so do the children of Gaza. And to me, their humanity is equal. And if you want to debate that, you're a monster. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated, you know? So that's really where I am. And I try and use the language that helps people go on a journey. You know, I've worked a lot with my Jewish brothers and sisters, many of them that are risking a lot within the social construct of their lives. You know,
their communities, their
communities.
Spaces.
I march with Jewish Bloc. I've become friends with people like Stephen Kaposh and his daughter Andrea. I mean, just extraordinary souls. And you know, one thing I think is important to say is that, you know, one of the central pillars, like many religions, but one of the central pillars of Judaism is altruism. And you know, the Jewish men and women that I've met show real altruism and understanding that, you know, a crime is a crime, a wrong is a wrong, whether it's understanding the settler colonialism of it all and the primal violence, medieval siege that is Gaza. And, you know, I remember speaking to one of my friends who was talking about her discomfort. She's a mother in London. And it's been really interesting because I've known her 20 years and she is Jewish and lives in North London, and she said, Misan, you know, I'm scared to take my kids to school. This is early on, you know, 18 months ago. And I'm seeing things, I'm writing things, you know, people are writing things on walls. And I just sat her down and I said, you know, I want to speak in a year's time to you, and we'll remember the conversation we had. And we spoke about everything. I spoke about being a black man, and when I step out the door from when I was a little boy, there was a police system that will stop and search me. There was a criminal justice system that was designed to give me longer sentences.
Even though you went to private school, even though you grew up in a specific part of the UK that
the streets
should be shielded from that?
The streets don't care. The police don't care. A black man, especially a black man, is what it is to the system. But I was explaining it to this lady so she can understand the similarities with the oppression that, in many ways, she was realizing that could be happening to her own children, to say, hey, I kind of understand that. And I was trying to articulate, saying, as awful as all of that is, it does not compare to children being sniped in the head daily. And she really took it in. And about a year later, we had a conversation, and she goes, you know, Misan, the unresolved trauma of her family, and it's real trauma. And what happened in October 7th, it is a trigger point, right? And, you know, self-preservation, especially of your babies, is very normal. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to step outside of that and have a bird's eye view of it all. Mm-hmm. And we had, a year later, we had a conversation, and then we started talking about, you know, the root to so much of the violence, you know, both Jewish people, Arab people have to endure, really. And she said to me something interesting. She goes, you know, Hamas keeps being brought up, but no one had ever told me to ask, how does something become Hamas, right? And then she said, in your country, Nigeria, you have Boko Haram. How does that happen? Mm. And she went on a journey where she started reading about the cycle of violence. And of course, if you kill generations of any groups of people, they will resist. There's an African, I don't know if it's a Nigerian saying, and it goes something like this: if the children of the village are not shown love, they will burn it down to feel warmth. And it was such an amazing, I just remember we were at a cafe talking about this. She had tears in her eyes, and she goes, you know, we keep talking about Hamas, but what are the boys in Gaza today going to become when they become men? How are they going to see the whole world when they become able-bodied men, the ones that have limbs left? Mm. And she's right. What we're doing now is creating a world that will be less at peace than any of us could ever imagine. And we're planting those seeds right now with the violence being inflicted on children who never chose any of this, who never hurt anyone, and their only crime was to be born. And I'm telling you this conversation because it shows a journey that one person, this is a person that wouldn't ever have said this in November 2023, and she's been on a journey. And now she's going to protests. She's walking with Palestinian people, hand in hand, wow, saying, we need to find a future of shared humanity. And it goes back to the talking points of our press, our fourth estate that has failed us. Because it's one thing saying, do you condemn Hamas? But how about doing some journalism and help people that listen to the news understand how we get to a place like this? And it's all born out of violence. Mm. So maybe we get people in rooms and they do talking instead of killing. And we can begin to figure out a way to have a future of shared and equal humanity, a future where everyone can travel, where everyone can drive down the same roads, get the same health care, and figure that out. But that's impossible when there's this kind of violence happening, especially to the most celestial. The closest thing, in my opinion, to God are children. Mm. The closest thing. And anyone that's comfortable thinking children can die for peace has lost their mind. And I am vocal about the children in the mines in Congo. I am vocal about the children that are being killed and raped in Sudan. Mm-hmm. And I am vocal about the children in Gaza. And if there were Jewish children who were having their limbs removed daily without pain relief, I would scream for them too. The children are all ours, in my opinion, as James Baldwin said. Mm-hmm. There's no nuance in this. We cannot let nationalism allow us to decide the value in a scale of a child. White here, a bit lower down, maybe, ethnically vague, can't tell. Black and Arab. No. So that's my viewpoint, and I think many people are going on a journey, Jew and Gentile alike, Arab, Muslim, Sikh, everyone is saying, well, maybe the mistakes of our past and the tribalism and the nationalism is not what's going to make this world a little bit kinder and a little bit gentler. And, there's a very special moment with Choose Love, where we're reading the names of murdered Palestinian children outside the Houses of Parliament. And we invited a lot of high-profile people. And, Steve Kaposh came, Holocaust survivor from Hungary, age of 7. And he's older, needs a crutch, and he stayed longer than anyone. And I have this picture. Man, Jewish man, sat for hours listening to the names of murdered Palestinian children. And I was just like, when it all comes down to it, our humanity, if we allow it to grow within us, will make all of us family and allow us to see the humanity in ourselves. And I just remember seeing that, and I was in tears. I couldn't. I was like, it's the little things for me that, they break you, right? And to see this man, I've already respected him, but the way he stayed, and people said, "Oh, sit down. Do you want a drink?" And he was just there. Hope lives.
I've heard you tell a story before about a moment that you had at one of the protests where you saw an interaction between a protester and a mother that you weren't able to capture. Can you retell that story?
You just want to make me cry, don't you? You're so cruel. Yeah. I think it was the last big one. There was one that was really big, and it was a hot day. And, the thing with me in protest now, before I could be quite incognito, but now a lot of people stop and say hi, which is amazing. And I don't always have a chance to take as many pictures as I like. But in one of these moments when people weren't sort of bothering me and saying hi, and I had the opportunity to just look around and look for a shot, I saw this woman wearing a hijab with a small baby, and then like a boy, I think he's like 3, that wanted to go potty time. He needed to go to the toilet. And if you have cousins or children, they don't care where they are. And she couldn't, so I was, as no one really, it's a protest, so people are moving forward. She was stressed. And I was like, I need to I need to try and help. And before I could do it, I see this queer woman. She had a Queers for Palestine badge on, just come out. And she goes to this mother. And what's so beautiful is that the baby was the first one to reach her hands out to this woman. And the mother was stressed, and she kind of, and there's an unspoken language between women as well. This is incredible. And so this other woman is holding this baby whilst the lady in the hijab is tending to her her boy who needs to go to the toilet. And I'm just like, wow. And I keep watching. I did think about taking a picture, but no, this is something else. And then she sorts her boy out. The other woman hands a baby back. And I'm just weeping. But as the woman wearing the badge, Queers for Palestine, is walking away, she's weeping. And she knew that she had had a completely pure moment of humanity. They never spoke, but they touched each other in a way that neither of them will forget for as long as they live. This is in the middle of a Palestine protest that Suella Braverman, I think it was Suella, called a hate march. That was the furthest thing from hate that I've ever seen. I do wish I had captured some of it though. But yeah, I've seen moment after, that was a particularly moving one, but I've seen moment after moment where you're not just getting a cross-pollination of different lived experiences, you're getting people fill their own cup of humanity and leave the protests having hope for the future. You know, that mother, she would have thought, you know what, these babies have a fighting chance of a life of love. And that matters. So protest is about many things. It's about the signs, it's about making noises, it's about the big speeches at the end, but it's also about human beings connecting. You know, I've seen grandmothers, I've photographed a blind man with his, you know, the white stick.
Wow.
There. People in wheelchairs, people that love differently, all there.
And this is what you've chosen to turn your lens on and give a platform to as well. What was that decision? When was the moment when you decided that I'm going to these protests, I'm seeing these people, I'm taking photos of them, but no, I'm going to go further and I'm going to really create a platform for these people to be seen, these ordinary people that otherwise would never have tens of thousands of shares on Instagram?
I never think about creating platforms. I think about what people are not being shown and bearing witness. You know, we have to bear witness. We don't know how long any of us have in this thing called life, but art, whether it's the oral history spoken around the campfire thousands of years ago, to the sculptures that we see in the great museums, art has a way of being immortal. And I wanted to make sure that the humanity that I saw on the streets, whether it's for climate, whether it's for Black Lives Matter, women's rights, Palestine, is never questioned or doubted in this age of misinformation. I don't work for newspapers. So I'm not like the guys you see in protests that take the pictures and they send it to whoever, Getty, and some editor will create, you know, call it Antifa or whatever, you know, create a narrative. My images, I shoot them and I post them. And everyone knows that. And everyone decides what they see. And I've always said that my photographs, I don't want you to see them really. I want you to feel them. And I believe people feel my images. And the exhibition I have on right now in London, it's been really interesting. We've only been open to the public for, I think today is the 4th or 5th day.
The Purpose of Light.
The Purpose of Light, yes. And I've seen things, you know, men weeping in an art exhibition. That just doesn't happen much, you know. I had a woman from Lebanon, literally her legs gave way and she fell into my arms. And you know, you hold her until you can feel her get stronger, and then she looked up to me and she goes, now I know what art is. As an artist, you know, all you do is pray that people recognize the value of what you capture, but you never really know. And I have to say, this exhibition has become a sanctuary.
And some of the people that you photographed in these protests
they
have
keep
have
turning
come.
up and I keep crying, you know, and we hold hands and have a hug, and you know, it's much more than art. This is community building.
And there's something too about the black and white photography, which has become such an integral part of your visual language. What is it about that kind of that?
There's no small talk in monochrome. You know, as beautiful as color can also be distracting. Where black and white, you know, I always say in between the highlights and the shadows lies truth. And there's a truth to monochrome images. I think if you Google the top 100 most iconic images of all time, the majority are black and white for a reason. And I think it just cuts through. You can't really defend yourself against a good monochrome image. And I think for protests, it just works beautifully.
My final question to you is, what do you hope, as an artist, as a communicator, as an activist, as a truth teller, when people look at your work, what do you want them to take from it? What do you want them to see?
When people look at my work, I want them to see that we, from childhood, have humanity in us, and the world that we are forced to exist in tries to remove that. And in my images, I hope it is a mirror of those that have fought for their humanity and thus fought for the humanity of others. Those that are willing to walk hand in hand despite different lived experiences. Recognize the sanctity of our existence, recognizing the right, the basic human right for men, women, children from all walks of life to have a right to determination, self-determination, to have laughter, to have family. And I hope that the courage of the few that have become the many can make you realize that the power that is held by the few, mainly men, is not going to define our future. We, this new tribe, this new community of people that are pushing apathy out of the room and forcing empathy into a new global village, will decide that we're not going to accept the status quo. We will never accept this. And my images hopefully will help you continue that journey and keep taking one more step forward to a gentler, kinder world that we all deserve to inherit.
Misan Harriman, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers. Was that okay? Was it all right?
You're brilliant. Okay. Thank you for watching this episode of The Big Picture, and a big thank you to our guest today, Misan Harriman. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this and all of our conversations, so please leave them in the comments below. And if you'd like to hear this episode or any of our episodes in audio format, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts from. And until next time, my name is Muhammad. Salam.